This is General Math, video 2 on absolute value. What is similar between these two values? And while we're at it, we might as well look at what's different between them as well. The numbers that I want you to think about are negative 14 and 14. Go ahead and pause the video. Maybe write down in your notebook some things that you notice that are similar and some things that are different. Some things that you might have listed for similar is that both of them contain the number 14 and that they would both be considered rational don't know what's happening here. Or integers. What you might have noticed that's different is their sign, and not astrological sign, but one of them is negative and one of them is positive. Now, absolute value doesn't really care what the sign is. Absolute value is only concerned with the distance a number is from zero. And there's two other things about that. The first one is that distance from zero is usually called magnitude. So if you ever read magnitude, it's either going to mean distance from zero or orders of magnitude, which we'll talk about in the next section on operations with real numbers. Signs, these tell us which direction from zero. So we're either going to look left if it's negative or right if it's positive. Notice how 14 doesn't have a sign on it. It's implied that there is a positive sign there. The next thing we need to know about absolute value is that it has its own special type of bracket. So if you see straight parallel lines with a number in between it, that means it is looking for absolute value. And I don't want you to confuse that with either of these types of brackets. Both of these brackets help us when it comes to the orders of operations. Instead, if we look at negative 14 and negative 15, negative 14 and 14, we'll put these on our number line. Put 0 right in the middle. Both of these are 14 places away from 0. So their absolute value would be 14. And there's no sign. Even though it looks positive, that's still 14. Something else that you might see is a negative sign outside of the absolute value sign. And in this case, the negative sign is going to be treated like -1. So I want you to think of this as -1 times the absolute value of a number. So if this was negative absolute value of -14, this would be -1 times, we said the absolute value was 14, and a negative times a positive is a negative. So what happens if we have the negative absolute value of +14? We still have -1 times 14, because that's the absolute value, and we still get -14. That is all for this lesson on absolute value.